He saved the world, but was never called a hero. He defeated the strongest monster with a single blow, yet received no reward. Why? Because he wasn't one of them. Moments later, the world collapsed. But as everything was wiped out, the system made one mistake. It left one man alive, Seong Jihan, the last survivor. Given one final chance, he's sent back to the past, back to level 2, back to the beginning. This time, he knows everything. The betrayals, the monsters, the war to come. The martial god has returned. The story begins in New York City, USA. Everyone is staring up at the sky as something strange suddenly appears. It's a monster known as the Behemoth. Right after, everyone receives a mission. They must defeat the Behemoth before it destroys the world. Panic spreads among the people, as they believe there's no way to defeat such a creature. But one voice rises, urging everyone to stay calm, because if they fail, the world is doomed. The game they're all playing is called BattleNet, launched back in 2010. At first, it was just a typical competition between countries, but everything changed when the Space League was introduced in 2022. That's when survival battles against creatures from across the universe began. Humanity, as Earth's representative, kept losing again and again. And now, in the year 2023, only 10 countries remain on Earth. These 10 nations are fighting to prevent the planet's destruction. Back in America, the Behemoth begins attacking everything in its path. Then, someone appears in front of it. Behemoth strikes, but the attack has no effect on the mysterious figure, who counters with a single blow and takes the monster down. Just like that, the mission in America is complete. This man, who defeated the Behemoth with a single strike, is known as the Martial Saint. His real name is Seong Jihan, and he's ranked 7th in the world. Standing atop a building, someone announces that America has once again secured a victory. That person is Baron Williams, the world's #1, one-ranked player and the guild master of American First. Then, a woman known as the Priestess descends from the rooftop, calling out Jihan's name. Baron lets her go, believing he can protect himself, even though his subordinates warn him that Behemoth's lingering energy is still present. The Behemoth was so powerful that just its energy was enough to knock out other players, but Jihan stood unfazed and fought it head-on. When Sophia, the priestess and #3 ranked player in the world, reaches the ground, she's shocked to see that Jihan has lost one of his arms. Without hesitation, she casts regeneration magic on him. Then, the reward for defeating the Behemoth appears in front of Jihan and Sophia. But before they can claim it, Baron steps forward and tells them to back off, saying he'll be the one to take care of the reward. His behavior sparks anger among the onlookers, who believe the reward should go to Jihan for defeating the Behemoth. Baron then announces the reward recipients, and shockingly, Jihan isn't on the list at all, simply because he's not a Native American. Even though Sophia protests, nothing changes. Jihan silently walks away. To Native Americans, Jihan is just a refugee, someone who came seeking shelter after his home country was wiped out. Jihan had earned an SSS rank skill called Nameless Divine Arts, which is what allowed him to become the world's #7 player. But despite his strength, he's still seen as an outsider and faces constant discrimination. What hurts Jihan most isn't the unfair treatment, but the guilt of being the only survivor from his homeland. Jihan then focuses on healing his arm, knowing the mission results would be announced soon. Suddenly, a system notification appears. It states that the United States and China have completed their missions. But Russia, Japan, and other countries have failed, leading to humanity's official loss. Because of this, humanity is now forced to face off against the Orcs in a final, decisive battle to ensure survival. Sophia pleads with Baron, saying they need Jihan to fight the Orcs, as he's the only one who's defeated them before. But arrogantly, Baron refuses to bring Jihan in this time. Then, humanity's representatives and the Orcs are summoned into an arena. Baron looks at his team of 5 players, which includes 1 player from China. Without wasting any time, Baron unleashes his power and charges at the Orcs. But shockingly, the Orcs defeat him with a single strike. Seeing Baron go down so quickly throws the entire audience into a panic. One by one, the remaining 4 players are also taken out by the Orcs. And just like that, Earth enters the deletion process initiated by the system. As the deletion begins, Jihan wonders if this is truly the end of the world. But once the process is complete, an unexpected error occurs. The system detects that one human still remains, Jihan. It turns out Jihan survived because his skill rejected the deletion. Realizing this, the system begins to debate whether or not he should be given another chance, acknowledging the potential he holds. Eventually, the system decides to grant Jihan one final opportunity, and in an instant, he's sent back to the very beginning of the League's launch. Jihan suddenly wakes up. He feels dizzy and confused, wondering what just happened. He looks around and then out the window. He's back in Korea in the year 2020. That's when it hits him. He's really returned. He opens his status window and sees that he's now level 2. It's the exact point in time when he first joined the League. Realizing this fills Jihan with a glimmer of hope. This is his chance to change the future, armed with the memories of his past life. Jihan makes up his mind. This time, things will be different. Because he's already seen the end of the world. In the current timeline, it's still 2020, and Korea is in a stable position. That's because they have one of the world's strongest players, Yoon Sae-jin, also known as the Sword King, ranked third globally. The Sword King is Korea's pride, celebrated for his unmatched skill as a warrior. Thanks to him, Korea has consistently held a top spot in the East Asian League. In fact, they were poised to climb even higher. But then, in July 2020, the Sword King announced that he would be joining Japan. That announcement sent shockwaves throughout South Korea. Now Jihan has returned to that moment in time, and seeing the Sword King again fills him with frustration. After the Sword King left, Korea descended into chaos. A nation that once consistently ranked near the top of the East Asia League started losing repeatedly without him, and their league ranking plummeted. Day by day, Korea kept falling lower because no one could fill the void left by the Sword King. At first, BattleNet was just a game. But 2 years later, when the Space League began, it became a brutal fight for survival. If someone died in the game, they would die in real life. And on top of that, monsters began appearing in low-ranking countries to massacre civilians. Korea, being one of those low-ranking countries, was headed straight for destruction. But not everyone in Korea died. Some people managed to survive. Those survivors all said the same thing. If the Sword King had stayed, Korea would have never faced such a disaster. The Sword King wasn't just Korea's most trusted player, he was also Jihan's brother-in-law. Then Jihan smashes a framed photo hanging on the wall. He's consumed with anger and confusion. He still can't understand why his sister ever fell in love with the Sword King. He wonders, if she were still alive, would things have turned out differently? Afterward, Jihan checks his status window and sees how terrible his stats are. In his previous life, Jihan was nothing more than a fool who drank and gambled away his time. He had no idea how valuable his gift truly was. Everyone becomes a player at the age of 18, but only a select few receive a gift. Jihan was one of those few, but he got the lowest possible rank, F. He used his gift to gamble in the game, betting on who would win. Back then, he had no clue how much potential he truly had, at least not until he awakened it much later. Then Jihan starts to wonder why he's level 2 instead of level 1. Turns out, while he was drunk, he accidentally drank an experience potion, which caused him to level up. He also notices he has 100,000 achievement points, but brushes them off, thinking they're worthless. Then he opens his inventory, and is shocked to find a special card inside. It's a privilege granted to the last survivor who chooses to retry the game. This card gives Jihan the right to exchange his achievement points, which suddenly makes those points extremely valuable. Without hesitation, Jihan uses the card. It unlocks a secret shop that only accepts achievement points. Inside, there's an option to upgrade the shop itself. Jihan immediately upgrades it to level 4, since the earlier levels had nothing useful. At level 4, an item appears that takes Jihan by surprise, emergency recovery, an item that can restore broken equipment. Jihan then heads to a room where he can use the device to enter the game. There, he tries using the item to recover an old paintbrush, and it works. This isn't just any brush. It allows the user to form a connection with the martial god. When the summoning time for BattleNet arrives, Jihan quickly uses the brush on his status window. Suddenly, his stats shift into a new form: martial power. Martial power is a combination of 3 attributes: strength, agility, and vitality. Right after that, Jihan is summoned into BattleNet. He receives a limited-time mission to take first place during the tutorial. The reward, 1,000 achievement points. Jihan is thrilled. This mission didn't exist in his past life, but now that he has martial power, it should be easy. The game begins, and right after it starts, someone attacks Jihan from behind. But the attack is effortlessly blocked. Jihan then thanks the attacker for giving him his very first kill. Guilds are organizations that nurture and train players. After BattleNet took over the world, every country began developing their own elite players. With major investments from top corporations, Korea was able to build both large and small guilds, and raised many powerful players at the start of the league. Jihan is currently in Gangnam Area 1, the stage where guild talents make their debut. Before Jihan scored his first kill, a player from the Twin Star Guild had already entered the Gangnam League. The Twin Star Guild is managed directly by the Twin Star Group and is one of the top guilds filled with many gifted individuals. This particular player started out as an ordinary person, but after receiving an A-rank gift, he was recruited into Twin Star. When he sees Jihan wearing only joggers and an undershirt, he assumes Jihan is a rookie, so he immediately targets him. But his attack is easily blocked by Jihan, to the point where Jihan thinks this guy is way too overconfident in his gift. Jihan responds mockingly, asking if he really joined the Gangnam League with that kind of gift. The player warns Jihan not to underestimate him, and then unleashes his speed-based power to strike again. But Jihan dodges every attack with ease. He continues dodging, using the fight as training to adjust his body, now back at level 2. Then, when the player launches another strike, Jihan blocks it so hard that the guy drops his sword. Jihan grabs the weapon and lands a clean counterattack, scoring his first kill. When someone dies in the game, their weapon disappears with them. Now that his warm-up is over, Jihan plans to move quickly and take the top rank. To reach first place, he needs at least 5 more kills. He looks over at a group of monsters gathered nearby. Killing a monster only counts as 0.1 kill, so it takes 10 monsters to equal 1 player kill. Because of that, Most players avoid monsters and go straight for other players. Jihan thinks anyone fighting monsters is being foolish, but suddenly he receives a quest to kill 30 of them. The reward is pretty decent, so he decides to go for it. Jihan charges toward the monsters. They prepare to attack, hurling axes his way, but Jihan catches one of the axes mid-air and throws it right back. The monsters are stunned. Then Jihan closes the distance and begins slaughtering them all. As more monsters swarm him, they quickly realize, this human is way too strong. They start to wonder, is he even human? To them, Jihan looks more like a monster. Once every last one is taken down, the mission is complete. Jihan earns 500 achievement points, and his level increases. With that level up, he receives stat points to distribute. He invests them all into martial power. By doing so, he increases 3 attributes at once: strength, agility, and vitality. When martial power hits 30, Jihan's old skill, Nameless Divine Arts, is reactivated. In his past life, martial power couldn't be raised just by using stat points. It required constant training and real combat experience. But this time, he can level it up directly. Suddenly, an arrow flies toward Jihan, but he narrowly dodges it. The archer who fired it claims Jihan just got lucky. He and his partner step forward, saying they don't have much time and want to end this quickly. The true purpose of the survival map is one-on-one combat. But there's no rule against teaming up, so alliances like this are pretty common. Jihan then notices a logo on their uniforms. It's from one of Korea's top 10 guilds, the Turtle Guild. A system notification appears, announcing that the tutorial will end soon, and only 60 players remain. Jihan realizes that just avoiding fights might have been enough to survive until now, but since these two went out of their way to target him, he decides to take them on. That's when he realizes he must look like an easy target. Jihan opens the leaderboard, and so far, he has 4 kills, placing him at rank 1. Then, just as the archer starts to pull back his bow, Jihan dashes in unexpectedly and lands a clean hit, securing another kill. The archer's teammate gets furious after seeing his friend go down. Jihan tries to strike him from behind, but the attack has no effect. The guy is wearing heavy armor. Realizing this, Jihan starts hammering the same spot over and over until the armor breaks and the player is finally eliminated. That brings Jihan another kill. Meanwhile, Lee Hae-yeon, the executive manager of Twin Star Guild, breathes a sigh of relief as she watches Jihan's livestream. Thankfully, Im Ga-young wasn't summoned next to Jihan. If she had been, she might have been eliminated too, losing her shot at second place. Hae-yeon tells Ga-young that if she ever runs into Jihan, she should just avoid him. Hearing that makes Ga-young a bit annoyed, but she still agrees to follow the order. Then, Ga-young looks back at the screen, watching Jihan closely. Something about him feels familiar, like they've met before. Im Ga-young is known for having an S-rank gift. She's the pride of Twin Star Guild, a new rising star they proudly showcase to the world. She has lived up to every expectation and has never failed to take first place in any league event. But now, Jihan has taken that top spot from her. Elsewhere, members of the Turtle Guild are baffled. To them, this doesn't make any sense. Jihan is only level 2, doesn't belong to a guild, and doesn't even have proper gear. We cut back to Jihan, now standing victorious after securing first place in the tutorial. He's already reached level 6, and he immediately invests more points into martial power, raising it to 9. He also receives a title, the one who conquered the tutorial, which boosts all stats by +1 and gives plus 20% EXP, but only in Bronze League. Thanks to the bonus stats, Jihan's martial power is now 10. That means the Bronze League is going to be a breeze for him. The promotion test to Silver League becomes available at level 25, so for now, Jihan just needs to focus on getting stronger. When a player hits level 5, they're given the chance to choose a class. Choosing a class is one of the most important decisions a player can make. There are 4 basic classes: Warrior, Archer, Mage, and Support. In his previous life, Jihan picked the Warrior class, so choosing it again would make things easier. But this time, Jihan has access to the Achievement Shop, which includes the option to unlock additional class paths. So instead of going with Warrior right away, he decides to try something else first. We're then taken into the Bronze League, where the next mission is called Defense. In this mission, players must protect a crystal while surviving waves of zombie attacks. The battle continues until only 5 towers are left standing. In this league match, Ga-young already looks disgusted as she gazes at the zombies below. Soon after, 2 more people appear, because in this mission, players are grouped into teams, not playing solo. Ga-young's teammates are 1 archer and 1 mage. Then, the 4th team member shows up. It's Jihan. This time, Jihan has taken on the support class, something that immediately raises eyebrows. There's a reason Jihan chose support first. The support class has access to a stat called Divine Power. Divine Power is crucial for unlocking a unique hidden stat later on. But for most players, it's incredibly hard to raise. However, Jihan knows a secret method to increase Divine Power, using points, a method unknown to the public. Ga-young is confused about why Jihan would be a support. Even the mage mocks him, saying his gear doesn't match a support's role. The archer tries to stop the mage from running his mouth, but Jihan has already had enough. Without hesitation, Jihan picks up the mage and throws him off the tower into the horde of zombies below. Then he calmly says, "I'll be fine without him, so don't mess around." The mage is eaten alive and respawns. Now terrified, he drops to his knees in front of Jihan, apologizing and promising to take things seriously. Why? Because in this Bronze League defense mission, each player only has 3 lives. That mage, Kim Gyu-hyuk, has already died twice, both times thanks to being thrown into zombies by Jihan. If he dies a 3rd time, he'll suffer a level penalty, and any skill he previously purchased will be lost, if it no longer meets the stat requirements. Earlier, Gyu-hyuk had even tried casting magic at Jihan, but Jihan blocked every single spell with ease. Jihan had told him that magic users were actually valuable in this map, but the praise just made Gyu-hyuk arrogant. Then Gaeyoung finally realizes who the mage is. It's Kim Gyu-hyuk, a former mage from one of Korea's top 10 guilds. He failed the silver promotion test 4 times and was eventually kicked out. Now, he has the nerve to demand an apology from Jihan as a condition for cooperating. Hearing this, Jihan gets annoyed and throws him back into the zombies. This time, Gyu-hyuk dies for good. Meanwhile, other teams are holding off the zombies using fire magic because their mages actually know how to fight, unlike Jihan's team. The archer yells at Jihan, saying he should have just forgiven Gyu-hyuk, so they could have used his firepower. But Jihan doesn't care. Instead, he opens his status window. There, he finds a mission. Rank 1 among all 10 towers. And another one, kill 1,000 zombies solo. Jihan thinks the timing seems impossible, but the rewards are too good to pass up. So he starts strategizing. Meanwhile, Gaeyoung has been quietly watching him this entire time. She's stunned that Jihan, with such high stats, would choose the support class. To her, it's clear. Jihan isn't someone worth recruiting into Twin Star Guild. Then the archer yells at Jihan again, frustrated that he keeps getting ignored. He even says Jihan should just fight alone if he's going to act like that. Hearing that, Jihan asks if it's even allowed for him to fight alone. The archer responds, "Sure, do whatever you want." With that, Jihan figures he might actually be able to complete his mission solo. Then Gaeyoung steps forward and says she'll take the front, asking Jihan to stay back. But Jihan has no problem handling things himself. Instead, he asks Gaeyoung to protect the archer. Suddenly, a blood zombie appears, forcing both Gaeyoung and the archer to brace themselves. This wasn't an ordinary zombie, but Jihan takes it down in a single blow, his attacks infused with divine power. Without skipping a beat, he moves on, slashing through more zombies. In his mind, he wonders whether he'll really be able to finish this. At this point, Jihan has already defeated 26 zombies. Since regular physical attacks are useless against blood zombies, Jihan slowly channels his divine power into each strike, eliminating multiple targets at once. The archer watches in awe, glad he doesn't have to lift a finger. Meanwhile, Gaeyoung is stunned. Jihan is controlling his divine power so precisely, not wasting a single drop. To her, this level of control is simply beyond reason. On top of that, Jihan never misses. Every blow is a perfect headshot. Now, Jihan has taken out 210 zombies, and he finally meets the conditions to boost his divine power stat to 7. The method he used to raise it was something he learned from Sophia, the priestess. The trick was simple. Hold onto a relic for a long time, and divine power will increase naturally, but each relic has its own requirements, so it's not as easy as it sounds. Sophia had shared that knowledge with Jihan during the tutorial phase, warning him that relics were rare and difficult to find, and that this method would only work during the tutorial. The information was extremely secret, no one else knew, but Jihan had seen someone who kept buying up these kinds of relics. After returning to the Sword Palace penthouse, Jihan had seen a pile of drained relics, their divine power already absorbed. The person behind it all? Another saintess he knew personally, his older sister, Seong Jihan. Jihan was Korea's greatest supporter, a national heroine. Among the pile of leftover relics, Jihan finds one metal pole that still contains some divine power. He quickly grabs it and starts absorbing the power inside. Once the process is complete, the pole becomes an ordinary piece of metal. Now that his divine power has grown, the relic is completely spent. Gaeyoung, watching from a distance, can't believe what she's seeing. Jihan's control isn't just abnormal, it's inhuman, and his physical strength, equally insane. Then the archer calls out to Gaeyoung, telling her that a tower across the map has collapsed, and they should help support the other team. As he speaks, a zombie sneaks up behind him. Gaeyoung notices and immediately draws her sword, slicing the zombie down with ease. To her, that was nothing. Watching her, Jihan suddenly remembers Gaeyoung is known by the nickname Plum Blossom Sword. She was once considered a worthy successor to Sword King, but in Jihan's past life, she met a tragic end, killed by the Sword King himself. After that, Jihan thought to himself, maybe this time, he'd have to save Gaeyoung from the Sword King. Then Gaeyoung asked Jihan if she and the archer could join him in the battle. Jihan quickly pulled up the leaderboard and checked the remaining time. Seeing that there wasn't much left, he decided to let Gaeyoung and the archer join him. He handed over the upper part of the tower to them, and without hesitation, leapt off the platform. But he didn't just fall. He activated a skill mid-air, instantly wiping out a large group of zombies below. Thanks to that attack, their team skyrocketed to the top of the leaderboard, securing first place. That meant one of Jihan's missions was completed. However, the mission to defeat 1,000 zombies was still unfinished. So far, he had only managed to take down around 560. Then the game ended, and Jihan was teleported back to the top of the tower. At the top, the archer was ecstatic, thanking Jihan for carrying him. Meanwhile, Jihan was already thinking about challenging this tower again when he got stronger, though he wasn't sure if the same mission would show up next time. Gyeong, on the other hand, stared down at the battlefield Jihan had cleared, shocked. How could a support class player with such a low level take down that many zombies alone? She even started to wonder, could this all be some kind of bug? Then the archer logged out, and Jihan went to claim his rewards. Suddenly, Gyeong called out to him and asked for his number. She wanted to recruit him into Twin Star Guild after seeing his potential. But after asking, she realized it might have sounded misleading since she hadn't explained anything beforehand. Jihan, however, didn't seem to care. He simply replied that he didn't remember his number. He added, "I'll give it to you when we meet again." And with that, Jihan logged out of the tower. Hearing that left Gyeong flustered. She felt like she'd just been rejected. We then switched scenes to Jihan walking through the city, thinking about how he's still used to remembering American phone numbers, so he really had forgotten his Korean one. He figured that with how things were going, he'd probably draw attention from a lot of guilds, which explained why they were asking for his number now. But at this point, Jihan had no intention of joining any guild. He opened his status window to check the rewards. Turns out, he'd leveled up to level 8 and received 1,500 gold points. His divine power stat had increased as well, but he still didn't have enough gold points to buy a new relic. Jihan found it strange. Back in 2020, relics were supposed to be cheap. So, why were they so expensive this time? Later, Jihan returned home. As he entered, he noticed a pair of shoes by the door. Seeing them brought back painful memories of his deep regret, specifically the moment when he failed to protect his niece. And now, standing in front of him, was the very niece he wanted to see again. Her name was Yoon Saya, an 18-year-old girl and the daughter of Sword King and Jihan's older sister. Jihan asked if she had just returned from Jeju. Saya replied that she had come home earlier than the rest of her group. Ever since she was little, Jikan had been the one to raise her, since her mother, Jikan's sister, had always been busy with work. To Jikan, Saya was family, someone truly precious, especially after losing his entire family when he was young. Saya then said that now, it was just the two of them left in the house. Jikan asked if she had gotten a call from her father. She said yes, but apparently all he did was tell her that he'd fallen in love with a Japanese woman. He called her just to say that, because that was a condition set by the woman. Hearing that made Jihan angry, but he already knew what kind of person the Sword King was, so it didn't really surprise him anymore. To Jihan, the Sword King was nothing more than an irresponsible man, someone who abandoned both his country and his own child, just for a woman. Jihan wondered if the Sword King ever felt even a shred of guilt for leaving Saya behind to suffer on her own. Then Saya asked Jihan if he was the one who smashed the photo on the wall. Jihan apologized, saying he was just really angry at the time. But Saya said, "Why'd you break it first?" "I was planning to do that myself," she added. "You don't have to worry, I'm okay." That reminded Jihan of how Saya had always been. Even when her mother passed away, even when her father walked out on her. She still kept smiling, cheerful as ever, always worrying about Jihan more than herself. But now, Jihan wasn't going to let things stay that way. This time, he was going to protect her. He gently placed his hand on her head and said, "You don't have to force yourself to smile anymore." Saya smiled and thanked him, but then added, "You smell like sweat." We then cut to the Twin Star Guild headquarters, where Hyeon couldn't stop laughing. She'd just found out that Gyeong got rejected by Jihan. That made Gyeong visibly annoyed and a little insecure too, especially since she didn't think she was as beautiful as Hyeon. But what Gyeong didn't realize is that she's actually really popular with a lot of people. Gyeong then asked Hyeon how she planned to recruit Jihan. Hyeon looked frustrated, admitting she still wasn't sure, but she had no choice. Orders were orders, and this one came from the top. Just then, Haeyeon received a notification. Her favorite match prediction channel had gone live. Gyeong asked if Haeyeon was really still watching gambling streams, but Haeyeon insisted, "It's not gambling, it's strategic analysis." When they looked at the live stream, both of them were shocked. Jihan was on the broadcast. Right now, Haeyeon didn't care at all about gambling. She was completely focused on the live stream's title. Jihan is the Sword King's brother-in-law. In the stream, Jihan activated his powers and destroyed the sword statue on the field. The viewers exploded. Some were calling him stupid for doing that. Others were totally hyped. The stream's view count skyrocketed instantly. After destroying the statue, Jihan let out a sigh of relief, and in return, received a ton of achievement points. He then declared that he was going to share his and Sea's thoughts about the Sword King's naturalization. The platform he was streaming on was called BattleTube, a live stream system built into BattleNet. It had a global market presence and unmatched influence, and because it was directly connected to BattleNet, views actually translated into real rewards. For Jihan, holding the title Sword King's brother-in-law was an incredible advantage. It meant he could use the title to earn big prizes. But watching the stream were also fanatical Sword King supporters. the very same ones who had pushed Seiya toward her death. They were die-hard loyalists, and as time passed, their hatred and anger only continued to grow. Then that emotion finally exploded, aimed straight at the Sword King's only child, Seiya, and in the end, it led to her death. During the livestream, Jihan declared that the Sword King would never return, and immediately played an old voice recording of the Sword King calling Seiya. The entire audience fell silent. Then, Seiya appeared on the livestream and introduced herself. She explained that the Sword King had left her the Sword Palace as an inheritance, but she refused to accept it because her father had left for Japan and abandoned their family. So, instead, Seiya announced that she would donate the property to the country, hoping it could help support Korea's players. We then flash back to 30 minutes before the livestream. Seiya had been shocked when Jihan first told her he planned to donate the house to the country. She thought he must be drunk and even pinched him, not believing what she heard. She then asked why he wanted to give away everything they had. But before Jihan could answer, Seiya agreed to the idea. Jihan, surprised, asked her again if she was really sure about this. Seiya replied that Jihan wasn't the type to say something like that without a good reason, and for her, what mattered most was seeing a new side of Jihan, a side that was confident and determined. Jihan couldn't help but wonder, how had Seiya endured all this? She was truly amazing for someone her age. In truth, Jihan's goal was to shift all the hatred and criticism away from her, to redirect it toward himself, and protect her from the judgment of others, especially those targeting the Sword King's family. Then, during the livestream, Jihan decided to stir up more chaos by taunting the Sword King, saying he ran away because he didn't believe he could survive in Korea. Seiya was shocked. That part wasn't in their plan. Jihan also declared that he would destroy the Sword King when they eventually met. After the livestream ended, Seiya confronted Jihan, asking why he had gone so far. Now, things had escalated. Korea and Japan were in an uproar over what he'd done. But Jihan just brushed it off, telling her not to worry or overthink it. Seiya said something felt different about him, that he'd completely changed overnight. Jihan wasn't surprised by her words. After all, he was a regressor. He even joked, "Do I look like some uncle who drinks all day or something?" Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Both of them were caught off guard. They hadn't expected anyone so soon. Seiya began to panic, worried that someone had come looking for Jihan, but Jihan reassured her, saying it wasn't anything to worry about. Then we cut to Japan, where the Sword King was watching Jihan's livestream. His current lover, a Japanese woman, asked if it was bothering him. The Sword King didn't respond. She told him she was worried he might go through a rough time. But the Sword King simply said, "I'm no longer the Sword King. I'm Ito Ryu now." She immediately disagreed, saying, "No, you're the Sword King, Korea's #1 player. That will never change." She then added with conviction, "I love you, and you're mine." This video ends here, but the story isn't over yet. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss the next part.